Teaching naked techniques is much more about the how, about the planning. What's the cycle like? So for faculty, we always start with content. What is the content I want to deliver? Hopefully we also have learning outcomes, what I want students to learn. Students don't start there. Students start with the entry point. They start with first exposure. Why do I care? All right. So there's a disconnect between what faculty think is important and what students think is important. So we usually ignore the entry point. The thing that most matters to students is, why do I care? How is what you're doing right now matter to me? Great teaching starts with what matters to your students, not with what matters to you. It ends with what matters to you. So what's a great swim teacher do? Right? Michael Phelps is a great swimmer. Is he a great swim teacher? Well, ultimately, a swim teacher does need to have some idea about strokes and know how to, do various things with your hands and your legs. But the first question a great swim teacher does is ask, how do you feel about water? Because if you like water, I can do one thing. If you're scared of water, I need to do something. Let's just go over here and sit by the side of the pool. Maybe we'll stick our toes in at the end of the time, but just relax, don't worry. So the relationship to brain research is that we now really understand a lot about how student thinking works. So the brain, as we now know, is developing through your 20s. So it's like trying to teach gymnastics to somebody who grows an inch between every lesson. Right? The brain is actually different every time they come back to class at this age. Know that your body sends two responses to your brain about everything. Right? The first thing that happens is that the first response gets to your amygdala first. That's the part of your brain that evaluates everything for threat assessment, right? Fight or flight. A little further along from the spinal cord is the neocortex, right? The part of your brain that's actually still growing when you're in your 20s. The judgment part of your brain, which is, right, so think about this, right? The judgment part of your brain is still growing. But before any signal, any information gets to the judgment part of the brain, it's first evaluated for, is this a threat? If it's a threat, you shut down everything else. It's a leopard. You don't stop it. The spots are really pretty. Look at how many teeth it has, right? You just run, right? You get away. So think about how this applies to the classroom too. If a student finds your classroom threatening, that's not trivial. If I think this information is going to change the way I think, and I'm worried about that, or this professor doesn't respect me or doesn't like me, that's non-trivial. That means I'm not getting the information. It's not getting to my neocortex. It's getting stopped at my emotional center. I'm having an emotional response. So that first contact, that first exposure, that why am I learning this is really critical. And we've not spent any time on it. Most of us think, well, I have my content, I have my sequence of topics, but that's not teaching. That's just a sequence of topics. Teaching is understanding what matters to your students and getting that, what matters to them, to be related to what matters to you. We're really trying to reel them in, but you can't start anywhere else than, how do you feel about water?